got YouTube on now. Hopefully I'll be able to get the podcast on in a second. And as we're getting ready to start, we're going to be going, we're actually on Sermon on the Mount. We're going so fast now. We're actually here on the Sermon on the Mount, part 11. So those of you who are trying to figure out what the other parts are, what we've already discussed, where we got certain information from, etc., feel free to just go to the YouTube channel, hashtag Find Kofi. You can find my wife, by the way. First of all, we give all honor to the Most High Yahweh Elohim. He is Father, Son, Holy Ghost. We give all honor to the Most High for my wife, the Honorable Maya. She lives a life that's able to be honored. You can follow her at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, but the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. You can follow her on TikTok, YouTube, and her website. The number to text her at is 410-469-1553. She's a herbalist, she's a healer, she's a chemist, she's a biologist by the degree as well, by degree as well. She actually has her, she has her own business, and she sells, and sometimes even gives and donates sanctuaries, etc. So we're thankful and grateful for the Most High for her. You can follow what we're doing at hashtag Find Kofi, hashtag FINDKOFI. You can also go to Kofi-40.com to find out what we're doing. You can join us live, including for the podcast later on. I keep forgetting we need to get this podcast up and running. For the podcast, that'll be later on. You can join us live for that. Matter of fact, you can join us live right now once we get the podcast going. But you can join us live at 9:15 a.m. Eastern in New York time. Go get the Podbean app, and you got to put the Kofi of 40 podcast on there. The Kofi of 40 podcast. My name up top right here, right, or my name in the description box. You put the Kofi of 40 podcast. We're on every. We do the podcast all the time, but specifically we have something called Shabbat Shalom, which, by the way, Shabbat Shalom to everybody. That is specifically on Shabbat or Saturdays at 8 a.m. Eastern or New York time. If you'd like to join us for that, feel free. You can text us at these numbers, 410-714-5078. You can text us at 202-599-7312. If you'd like to participate in Yah's Land Project 83, where we're looking for families that are willing to help us to be able to get land by October of next year, feel free to check that out as well, or get in contact with us through these numbers that you see here. And we're appreciative. If you'd like to give donation or anything like that, we have that in the description or in the bio for the channel if you like that, or if you'd like to be able to find out more about stuff, the classes that we do. We have classes right now on marriage, monarchy, sovereignty for this quarter. Marriage, monarchy, sovereignty, natural medicine 1, fibroid cyst, and Hebrew characters, which will actually be on this evening. So if you're interested in any of those things, let us know, and we will get back to you ASAP, okay? But we're going to get ready to start. Let me get the podcast going, and we're going to get to Sermon on the Mount, part 11. Get into this word. Thank you so much once again to everybody who's on. Thank you for your patience. Once again, I apologize for being this late. We'll make this work, though. We're thankful and grateful. Usually Saturdays and Sundays is where we get our big, the biggest group of people who can come, because it's the weekend, so usually people are off. So I apologize for being a little late, but we thank you all for being in there and hanging in there with us. So we can get these things we've gotten this out of the way. So let's go ahead and get into, if you want to take a screenshot or something real quick, feel free to do so. I'm about to erase it. Or you can go to YouTube channel, or any of our platforms, by the way, on social media. Just look up hashtag Find Kofi, right? But if you want to find us on YouTube, just look up hashtag Find Kofi, and you'll be, that's the new YouTube channel that we just started, and we'll be able to get there. So how you come to someone else's page, share this page. Oh yeah, I missed whatever that is. I saw somebody either get blocked or something. Thank you to the moderators. We appreciate you. Appreciate you, moderators. All right, appreciate you guys. So let's continue to go on the Sermon on the Mount series. Oh wow, this is not my normal eraser, so I'm having erasing problems too. Wow. Okay. Today's one of those days, but we're gonna push ahead. All right, y'all pray for me. It's one of those days. We're gonna get stuff done though. Stuff that needs to be done. This is not my normal eraser, so this is not the eraser that goes with this board at all. But prayerfully, you guys will be able to get the gist. Hopefully, there's not too much stuff up on there for you to not see. All right, so we're going to go into the Sermon on the Mount series, part 11 today. And in part 11, we're going back to our word. So we're going to go to Matthew chapter 4, verse 23 to start real quick, just to kind of give a brief overview. I'm going to be very quick on this because we're running late and we only got a little bit of time left. We got about 40 minutes or so left. So that includes us doing the outro and everything so we can get ready for the podcast at 9:15 a.m. Eastern in New York time. So here we go. You ready? Let's hit this. All right. So part 1 was Matthew chapter 4, verses 23 through Matthew chapter 5, verse 12, where we learned that Yahshua came speaking the kingdom, healing the disease, healing the sick, then started telling people. Once he took them to a high mountain, he begins the Sermon on the Mount, and he starts telling these people that have been following him from all over the place, not just Israel, but from all over the place. He starts telling them that the kingdom of heaven belongs to them. Part 2, Matthew chapter 5, verses 13 through 16, is where he tells us that if the kingdom of heaven belongs to you, understand that you're a city that's set on a hill, and that people are going to take notice of who you are, right? After that, he goes to Matthew chapter 5 and verses, and this is part 3 of the series, Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 through 20. He says, look, if you comprehend that the kingdom belongs, if you can comprehend that the kingdom belongs to you, right, Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 through 20, then you must understand that not only are you set for people to look at, but you have to know law, right? Verse 17, understand that the law, Yahshua came not to destroy the law, but to fulfill it. Verse 18, he says that you shouldn't change the most minuscule of measurements, nor should you change even the way it's written. Verse 19, he comes behind that and says that the people who say that you shouldn't live by the law and that don't live by the law are considered the least in the kingdom, but those that live by the law and do what the law says, they're considered the greatest in the kingdom. And then in verse 20, he makes it a point to say after that you should know the law better than the scribes and the Pharisees, the people who make the law. Part 4 after that was Matthew chapter 5, verses 21 through 26, where we talked about the importance of not being in debt and letting debt and anger take you out of where you're supposed to be. Part 5 after that was in dealing with marriage, Matthew chapter 5, verses 27 through 32, talking about the importance of marriage and marital laws and things like that and covenant. Matthew chapter 5, verses 33 through 7 was part 6, where we discussed not swearing oaths. Oh, I swear on heaven, I swear on earth, I swear on my mama's grave and stuff. He said, let your yea mean yea, let your nay mean nay. In other words, whatever you communicate, let your nonverbal communication set up your verbal communication. Only 7% of communication is verbal, which means that you got 93% that needs to show commitment to what you say, right? So don't just say something and then don't do it and then talk about, but I swear on my mama's grave. If you say it, then just do it. You don't have to swear on nothing, right? Then after that, part 7, Matthew chapter 5, verse 38 through 42. It talks about if you're going to hurt people, then hurt people, or if you're going to help hurt people, understand that hurt people try to hurt people. So if you try to help somebody who's going through something, understand they're probably going to try and do something that's going to hurt you back and that's going to affect you back. Be ready for that and be ready to take that up. Then the next part after that we went over was Matthew chapter 5, verses 43 through 48. That showed us that we need to make sure that we comprehend that their love has no loopholes. If you say you love somebody, love them. Don't try to figure out a way not to love somebody. If you say you love somebody, then love them, right? If you say you love somebody, you love them. If you're teaching, you must know who Elohim is. Yeah, you know who God is. God is a deity. You probably don't even know that. He's a Germanic deity, but we worship Elohim. So it's about our standard, not yours. It's about Elohim's standards, not yours. Matthew chapter 6. Verses 1 through 4 was part 9, and that told us about how when you do stuff for things behind the scene. Don't worry about having everything that you do have to be in front of somebody. Do things because you're doing things for the kingdom's sake, and Yahweh will see what you're doing in private. He will address it in private, and he'll bless you in public. So when people see the public you, and they're like, why do you get this? And why does this person think they have the right to do this? And why does this person do this, that, etc., right? No, Elohim isn't my God. God is a deity. You're laughing. You don't understand. See, that's what I'm saying. It's like, for example, you think the Kemetic people have gods, probably, right? Kemetic people don't have gods. Kemetic people don't have gods at all. Kemetic people have netchers. It's a different culture. It's a different concept. You think that God is just the same as saying Elohim, right? But God can be just like saying Baal. It's a different deity. Is a different thought process. Now, Baal at one point you could say was close to Elohim if you know how the Bible goes and how history goes, because if you know who Abraham gave a tithe to, then you would know that he gave a tithe to somebody who worshiped Baal, but his worship of Baal was actually consistent with the worship of Elohim. Only later, and history shows us this in the 1900s, when they found hundreds of thousands of things that they could look at and read for themselves, they found that Baal had been bastardized and taken away from who he was supposed to be, just like God has been bastardized and taken away from who he's supposed to be. Look up people like Charlemagne and people like that who you love to bring up as Christian, kings and stuff like that. See how they worshipped God. God is different. God goes through a romanticism. He goes through a process of being changed from who he was supposed to be. Look at what Justinian and Theodora did when they opened up Pandora's box and gave birth to allowing there to be a Western Rome and an Eastern Rome by religion, or what we would use the term religion, right? So if you don't comprehend that, you're off, right? And then let's go into this last part. I'm sorry for that. Then yesterday we talked about prayer, communication with the Most High, right? And here's one of the things that always strikes me. I try to tell people, you're sitting here, you're arguing about this God thing, or arguing about the context, or arguing about our standard and saying our standard isn't yours, therefore it's not great enough. Problem with it is you don't even know about a shit before I even go into it, right? You guys have heard me say this over and over again. You guys have seen me, even if you haven't taken the Hebrew characters class by now, you probably seen me write this out over and over again. If you can't tell me what this means, right? If you literally cannot tell me, I don't mean any harm. I'm just trying to tell you, this is the most simple of things. If you don't know what this means, if you can't tell me what this means, right? Exactly. How can you go to heaven if you don't know who you serve? What does this mean? Before we even jump in, to give this person, because every once in a while somebody needs to do this, but I like it because it allows us to be able to see where people's heads are at. Can you tell me what this means? This person's going to go on and do. Have you noticed when we do this session, real quick section, and we give somebody a minute or two to be able to answer a question, they never answer the question. Can you tell me what this means when you're talking about Elohim? And I'm speaking specifically to, we're going to go ahead and allow you to have the limelight that you want. You got your five minutes of fame, right? Or your 2 minutes of fame. We don't have that much time. Wife of Jesus Christ. What does this mean? You said, who cares what it means? Well, you should care. You should care what it means. The wife of Jesus Christ. First of all, his name's not Jesus. It's not Yesus. It's not Yesu. It would be Yashvai or even Emmanuel, number one. So you should be the wife of Yashvai HaMashiach or of Emmanuel, number one. Right? Well, you don't, which is why you're in trouble. Because you claim to talk about Jesus, right? This Jesus you speak of, well, this means the Son who comes out the right family, that would be Jesus, is one with the Father, and through the Father he will be our head when he is destroyed, being led to the Tov, or to the cross. That's Barashit. Now this word Barashit right here literally means in beginning. That's the actual word for Genesis. Somebody changed it from that to Genesis. But the word for Genesis is actually Barashit. Before somebody tried to change it into Greco-Roman language, this is originally what it meant, which meant that before the earth was founded, right, there was already agreement between Son and Father, right, and Holy Spirit, if you know about who led Yahshua to the cross and to the wilderness and stuff like that, that said that he would die on the cross because they saw that Adam was going to sin, and they loved man so much that they were willing to go ahead and sacrifice so that man would be able to come back and be salvaged. That's what salvation is, the place that we arrive at due to being salvaged. This is what I mean when a lot of people speak on stuff and they don't know the culture. This is why we're so big on culture, guys. Right? This is why I'm always going to be very big on culture. If you don't know this, then what Bible are you reading? This is why somebody can have a name, literally, and this person already got, muted. But I'm not going to block you until I say this, just in case you're still listening. This is why somebody like this person can be on here, call themselves the wife of Jesus Christ, who they don't even say is Yeshua HaMashiach, and not even know that the very first words say they don't care about what the Bible says about their Christ. How can you be the wife of Christ and you don't even care what the Bible says about your husband? You see? So hopefully that resonates with you, wife of Jesus Christ, as you're still on. Thank you for being on, though. But think about that. How can that be? You got a person that came on here saying, I'm the wife of Jesus Christ. So you're saying you're the wife of Yeshua HaMashiach. He says he wants to come back for his bride that's without spot or wrinkle, that has her lamp lit and all that stuff. And here you are, you don't even care about what he said about himself in the very first word of the law that he gave to protect you until he comes back for you. Right? You see that? So you got a lot of people who are out here who are saying random stuff, right? But they don't comprehend that which they speak. So let's get back into today. We got 4 points that are going to come out these scriptures for you. Part 11 of the Sermon on the Mount today, we went through our little review. If you want to find out more on it, you just go to the YouTube channel, look up hashtag #FindKofi, FINDKOFI, and you can find this stuff. Some of the stuff is still uploading. I'm probably going to have to wait a couple days for some of the stuff to upload now. But stuff is uploading onto the podcast, things like that. As I have more, get some stuff back and get some devices and stuff in order, we'll have that stuff caught up for you. Also too, when you put in hashtag #FindKofi and hashtag #FindBloom and hashtag #FindSolomon's our son's YouTube channel has started now, so you can go there. Still putting some stuff together, putting some music and stuff together for him as well. So we're excited where that's going. We should have that for you guys very soon. But let's go ahead and go into this. Matthew chapter 6, excuse me. And we're going to start at verse 15. And we're going to read through and we're going to give you guys 4 points. And like I said, I'm running behind, so we only got to think about like 20 to 30 minutes left or something like that now. That includes our outro and everything because we've got our podcast to get to this rising as well. So if you can, just kind of give me your attention. If you can, 30 more minutes. That's the max I'm asking you, and we're gonna go ahead and get out. All right. So, I'm sorry. What was that? What was that, Jimmy? You said then I reprimanded for understanding it. But listen, say that there are new believers just hearing or seeing the message and sees Hebrew written. Yeah. So understand this. So you're saying that I reprimanded the person. First of all, I don't know if you were on the whole time, Jimmy, but if you were, if a person comes on and simply says that you don't know about God, you don't know about Jesus Christ, you don't know this or that, and they're not willing to listen, right? And somebody says, okay, well, let me tell you about this as far as the Bible is concerned. They're still not willing to listen. Then they start saying you're a false prophet and this or that or whatever and all these things, right? Still didn't say anything, right? Then they said, I don't care, I don't care about your God. I don't care about that. You don't even know who God is, right? So I explained it, what it means. So you don't know what God, you don't know what you're talking about, right? Then I get to the point to where I say, all right, and I'm doing some of this right now with you, Jimmy. I don't know why this thing is like, I don't like people, I don't give them a chance. Like, if you've been on long enough with this, or maybe this is your first time, this happens almost every day. We're on every day, right? I've even had people come on live and let them argue with me for 40 minutes when I only had an hour and a half to give a message, right? But maybe you're not aware of that. But here we are. We've had people call in too through the podcast, all that, and be able to just rip us and say all types of manner of evil against us, right? So here's this guy doing this. We get to the point where we write this out, and so he says, I don't care about what that means. So I say, you should. And I didn't reprimand him. I just told him. I didn't yell at him. I didn't say the stuff he was saying about me. Heck, he said I was a false teacher, right? I didn't say you're a terrible person. But we do have moderators on here to make sure that people can learn and grow. And if he's decided, like the Bible says what? Now, this is not me. This is what the Bible says, right? So if the Bible says, my people perish for a lack of knowledge, and it doesn't say that they perish because they don't know. It says it's because you have rejected knowledge. I gave him several things. He rejected all of them. And even after he was muted, I didn't block him right away. I still finished what the point was and then blocked him because obviously he's not trying to grow and do those things. Now, he had the number and stuff on here that I had on earlier. If he wants to call me, we can still have a conversation, right? But if your whole goal is, hey, everybody should be able to say whatever they want, and nobody should be stopped with anything, Yahshua Mashiach stopped Nicodemus, right? Like we like these scriptures, but you read them all the way through. You like John 3:16, right? Well, read John 3, starting at verse 1 to verse 16. Nicodemus comes in the cover of night, talking about, you the man, Yahshua, you got this going on, you got that going on. Yahshua stops him and says, look, we can't even continue this conversation until you're born again. He was rude. You would consider him to be rude. I mean, you would have said that was rude. But he said, we can't continue this because you're playing around with something rather than talking to me in a real language. He said, what do you mean? Just like the guy. What did you mean? Born again. That doesn't even make sense. How can a man go back into his mother's womb? He said, let me explain it to you. And then let me get you to understand what I really mean, right? Because you only understand an earthly term, so let me get you to understand through the law, since you're supposed to be a Pharisee. He said, the same way that Moses raised up the serpent in the wilderness, the very thing that was poisoning people, right? You think you know about this thing, but it's actually poisoning you. The very snake that's biting you. He said, so must the Son of Man be lifted up so that you will be able to actually get the poison drawn out of you. And if you would allow that to happen and look towards the snake rather than your own thing and your own purpose, he says what? He says, I'll draw all men. While I'm drawing the poison, that I'll also then be able to draw all men unto me. And then he says, for Elohim so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. So the thing is not to just be like, hey, we should let people wild out on here, act a fool, say they don't care what the word of Elohim says. We should make sure that we hold them accountable too. Just like you're holding me accountable, and I appreciate it. And since you held me accountable as a brother, I felt it necessary to give you something and not come off in hate or despising or yell at you or anything like that. So prayerfully you saw the difference, right? I didn't yell back. I didn't tell him he was stupid. He wasn't blocked initially. I mean, heck, we spent 2, 3, 4 minutes on him specifically. Before he was spending the 5, 6 minutes trying to be disruptive. And I was answering his questions a little here or there, right? So if you don't, that's not the standard. The standard's not for everybody, so I get it. You don't have to agree with it, but it is what it is. All right, so we're coming to Matthew chapter 6, and we're going to do verses 16 through 24. Okay, that's where we're going to focus. And I've only got a little more time left, but as you can see, I don't mind using time to be able to help and talk with people, right? And you saw that our conversation probably went a whole different route. And I'm sorry if you were trying to converse back in all honesty, because that wasn't really a conversation, but as much as we probably need, but I can't see all the stuff that pops up, so forgive me if I messed that up. Let me make sure I had the right verses again. Going through verse 24, and we're starting at Matthew chapter 5, verse. Verse 6, okay, yeah. All right, so let's read through this, get these 4 points, and then you can go ahead and study them for yourselves, right? And we're thankful and we're grateful to the Most High for what he's doing. All right, Matthew chapter 6, verses 16 through 24. It reads as follows, moreover, when ye fast, be not as the hypocrites of a sad countenance, for they disfigure their faces, that they may appear unto men to fast. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. But thou, when thou fastest, anoint thy head and wash thy face, right? That thou appear not unto men to fast, but unto thy Father which is in secret, and thy Father which is in secret shall reward thee openly. So point number 1, we're going to talk about fasting. Okay? All right. Second point, going to come starting at verse 19. Lay not up for thyselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. For where your treasure is, and now every dog in the neighborhood wants to bark. All right, sorry. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is the darkness? So, second point. Actually, let me make sure I got this right. I said 4 points. No, we only got 3 points. How about that? Amen. Yeah, although I could just say we're only going to focus on 2 points. So, being whole or holy. We're going to talk about being holy. The third point, amen. Amen, Holy Spirit. Third point is no man can serve 2 masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve Elohim and Mammon. Cognitive dissonance will be our last point. Yashua is hitting so many different things in this, isn't he? Right? So many different things. He's talked about marriage. He's talking about who the kingdom of heaven belongs to. He's talked about when people come against us and say all manner of evil against us. He's talked about being humble. He's spoken on the law. He's spoken on so many different things, right? This is one of the greatest sermons of all time, if not the greatest sermon of all time. Yahshua speaks quite a bit, so I don't know if I'd say it's the greatest one, the only one he's done, but it's amazing the stuff that he's bringing up, right? So these are the 3 points that we have here. He talks about fasting, being whole or being holy, and not having cognitive dissonance. In other words, you can't worship more than one. So cognitive dissonance is when you're trying to basically in your mind worship or respect. The word worship really breaks down to extreme respect, and a lot of people are trying to have extreme, profound respect for something that is not for them, right? So basically, you know, when you're trying to respect multiple ideas and really two conflicting ideas, some people out there triple-minded, quadruple-minded, trying to respect and worship like 3-4 different ideas, right? Like, and you're in a position where you can't get what's necessary for you, for your family, for your life, etc., right? So you got to understand that when you're dealing with a lot of this stuff, you're dealing with, you know, a lot of things in our lives really come down to like these 3 places, right? Because understand, I love the way this breaks down, because to fast really means to break away from something. To fast means to stop doing it, to not allow it. Matter of fact, a lot of people don't know this because we don't comprehend etymology that well, and we don't study it. We don't break down words anymore. We just go by what somebody has redefined or what somebody tells us, which is why people don't study things like Black's Law Dictionary. But why would you study Black's Law Dictionary, the Constitution, things like that, if you're not trying to figure out what words actually mean to be lawful and legal when you use these terms? So to fast literally means to give something up. Doesn't mean just not only eating food. It means to give something up or to break away from something. That's why when you eat, you actually break your fast. You were breaking away from eating, but now you broke the gap and you came back to eating. That's why it's break fast. So you break fast multiple times a day. People talk about breakfast foods. There's no real such thing as a breakfast food. Every time you eat, you have broke a fast. So if you eat 5 times a day, you had 5 times that you could have fasted, but you broke it. In essence, that's what happens. Right? If you eat three meals a day, you had 3 times that you fasted and 3 times you broke your fast, right? But fasting also can mean giving up sex, right? Fasting can be I'm not, or I don't know. Fasting can be I'm not going to go another day without exercising. The day that I go without exercising again is the day that I once again break my fast, right? So fasting can be many different things. Fasting can be many different things, right? Breaking away, releasing. Matter of fact, when you're running, when you say somebody, man, he was fast when he was running, right? What you're really saying is, exactly, but Black's Law Dictionary. But when you're saying somebody ran fast, what you're saying is, man, like that dude broke away from everybody else, or that person has breakaway speed. You hear us use terms. Shalom, Helen Mark. How you doing? Hello, shalom, sister. And you hear people use these terms, but we don't really know what they mean. When you say, man, that person runs fast, what you're saying is if somebody else was trying to run with that person, they wouldn't be able to keep up. They would separate from that person. Therefore, they're fasting from that person. That's what you're saying. But it's become a term, and we shorten, words and move things around. And so now we just think, hey, to run fast means that I'm quick. But you can be quick, but if you're not breaking away from the person you're running against, then you would not be considered to be fast, right? So, for example, somebody who is fast, for somebody who's fast in a foot race with you at the park might not be fast, in comparison to somebody who is at, who plays in the NFL or who runs in the Olympics, right? That person might not be considered to be fast in certain places, right? So in certain places, we don't look at certain people as being fast, right? So if we don't consider certain people to be fast in certain places, right, we don't consider them to have breakaway speed in certain arenas. All right, then comes the next part where it talks about making sure that when we go to verse 19, talking about stop laying up treasures here on earth, right, and being in a position to where you're laying up treasures here, but not laying up treasures spiritually. If you don't lay up treasures spiritually, then you're going to be in a bad position, right? When you don't lay up treasures spiritually, what's happening is what? What's happening is that you're focusing on things that are physically. So he says in verse 22, there's a particular saying. It says the light. Yeah, it says, for the light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. Now, a lot of people miss this because we don't know, once again, ancient language. We don't know how these words are to be performed, etc. So we see something and we kind of glance over. We're like, oh, that's interesting. When he says your eye will be single, he's saying your eye shall be one. When he says your eye should be single, he's saying your eye should be one. Right? When he's saying your eye should be single, your eye should be one. So we say this all the time. Whenever you see this word holy, put a W before that H. If you're going to be holy, you should be whole. You should be one. Right? And so after talking about breaking from some things so that you can be holy or be one, his next point comes up to cognitive dissonance. You cannot serve both Elohim and Mammon or finance. Right? You can't be about having two masters. You will either love one and hate the other, or vice versa. You can't be about both, right? You can't be about both. You said your heart is one with Elohim, your eyes are to him, right? Your passion, the word heart even means passion, right? So if your passions are his, then you guys are one, right? So even in that, be ye holy as I am holy, which allows now a symbiotic holiness, a symbiotic relationship where you live inside of him and he lives inside of you, right? But the problem is that many of us are not fasting or breaking away. And even when we fast or break away, we don't do it for whole reasons or for rightful reasons. We have cognitive dissonance. So we fast, but we tell everybody, look at me, I'm breaking away from these things. I'm going to put out on Facebook for everybody to see, right? You don't really care about doing this stuff because you're not going to do it. But at the beginning of the year, here are my, what do you call them? Your New Year resolutions. My New Year's resolution for this year, I'm not going to do this, and I'm not going to do this, and I promise I'm not going to do this, and here's my pictures, and you guys hold me accountable. You know nobody going to hold you accountable. You're going to start eating wrong, 2 weeks in, right? You're going to stop going to the gym after the first couple days. You're going to allow a fight between your spouse and you to be the reason why you can't do thus and such anymore, right? Right? But fasting for real reasons, I just want to be whole with the Most High. I don't have to tell everybody about all that, right? And he mentions that in the beginning of what we read in Matthew chapter 5, verses 16 through 20, I believe, or 16 through 19, somewhere around there is when he's focusing on fasting and saying, hey, don't be like the hypocrites. Here he brings up this word again, the hypocrites, the religious leaders, the hypocrites, people who live underneath the criteria they set for others. He says, don't be like them. Because they're out here fasting, but they make sure that they tell everybody. Just like when they pray and they got to sound a trumpet in the street and do all this stuff. And when they give alms, they have to make sure everybody knows they're coming to give. He said, well, they do the same thing with fasting. When they fast, he says they got to put all their business out there and make sure everybody knows it. And then meanwhile, they're not going to live up to their standards anyways. But he says, however, when you fast, when you fast, he says what? Make sure that you do it for whole reasons. And that you're not doing it so that everybody else can see it. And he said that when your father, Abba, when he sees that, and he sees you worrying about these things and doing it in secret. He said the religious leaders used to go to a point, some people do this today too, but he said religious leaders used to go to a point to where they used to even dress up their faces, like make up their faces and put on clothing and stuff, so that people would be like, oh, okay, they must be fasting. Like, they literally make it look like they were distraught. They put on makeup and stuff just to make sure people thought that they were messed up, and they'd have their faces set like they walk around, oh my gosh. Somebody said, what's wrong with you? You okay? Oh, well, I'm fasting. I've been fasting for this many days, but I'm hanging in there, right? There are a lot of people who live in that today, right? Like, what's wrong with you? Well, I'm just not feeling good. The next day, they feed off the attention of it. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be honest from time to time, or if you're going through something, you can't ever show any signs of it. What I'm saying is there are people who literally dress up their whole lives to make sure that everybody can just rest in it, that they can keep saying why everything in their life is wrong, and they keep focusing on things that are wrong in their life so much that they can't even be holy. They can't be whole because you're trying to obey two masters. Right? Remember we talked about in part 4, Matthew chapter 5, verses 21 through 26, that you can't be in debt to something else and then try to give Yah what is his. If you're in debt to the attention of others, then don't expect to be there to be able to receive his attention. He says, give me the attention, right, in secret. And he says, then I'll make sure that people see the result of that attention you gave me in public. I'll give you a holy result, a whole result, right? But literally fasting. So fasting, right? Breaking away from something, holy, trying to be whole in what you do, and cognitive dissonance, recognizing the things that have you wrestling in your thought process and stuff, right? So now, here's the things we got to do when we put these three things together, because we don't want you to just be hearers of this word. We want you to be doers as well. So we need to give you some things to do, right? So fasting, question is, what is it that you need to break away from, right? Might you need to go on a fast from Netflix? As much as I love having you on, might you need to go from a fast of YouTube or TikTok or podcast? If I can be honest, this might sound silly to some. I was at a point at one time in my life to where I wasn't a fan of anybody, but then I began to become a fan of LeBron James. The reason why, fan means fanatic, so I try not to be a fan of anybody. I haven't been a fan of a football team, basketball team, baseball team, whatever, a person, since I've been a little child. I've learned to not be a fanatic, right? Because of what it does to people and how you can't see things for what they are, and you start putting yourself through certain prisms. So I try not to be a fan. And I realized I was becoming a fan of LeBron James, not because I think he's the greatest guy in the world. Matter of fact, I think he has some nonsense, just like Michael Jordan has some nonsense. People just like LeBron more than they like Jordan, so they don't bring up LeBron's nonsense. But one of the things that I was recognizing and realizing was that, wait a minute, LeBron James, like when people say stuff about him, I start feeling a certain way. Now, not that I was saying anything, but inside, even in the places nobody could see secretly, right? That's when you got to start dealing with stuff. It starts secretly where nobody can see it. I was like having issues. Like I would start feeling a certain way, like even emotionally, like as far as the motion of my body. I would feel like certain things even like in my heart. And I'd be like, why do I feel like this about some guy who I've never met? Right? Why do I feel like that about some guy whom I've never met? Who doesn't necessarily speak on the word like I speak, who's not really trying to be part of making sure that his community is this. I know he does stuff for, things to be able to get credit and things like that, but I'm talking about just, I was like, why do I feel like that? And so I realized I was becoming a fan. I was becoming a fanatic because people were talking about him so bad all the time, right? That it was like, man, like he doesn't have any positive attributes. Like people were saying, like, in order to say that Michael Jordan was better than him, people were trying to say that he was trash. And so it was like, okay, like, dang, is that what we're really doing? So like, if that's what we were really doing, then it was like, I gotta find a way to, deal with this, right? And to be able to not be so focused on this dude where I'm becoming a fan. So I literally did an ESPN fast. I went like 6 months, 7 months, 8 months or so. I just stopped listening to ESPN, and I was able to therefore get back to my holiness, not have it to where somebody else was affecting me, where I was getting off of what I was supposed to do. And therefore I was able to get rid of this cognitive dissonance, because now you start getting to a weird place where it's like, okay, I got to defend him, but at the same time, how am I defending him on something where I know clearly like Yah wouldn't be okay with what I'm about to defend him in, right? So I was able to get rid of it. So the question you have to start asking yourself, what do you need to break away from? And what steps have you taken? Because we teach that, like when those who are going through Natural Medicine 1 class, we haven't gotten there yet, but one of the sessions that we do in our Natural Medicine 1 class is we teach about fasting and preparing yourself to fast. I know somebody's probably waiting for me to just go into the physical only, where even in the physical or the spiritual, you have to prepare yourself to fast. Yeah, TV detox, right. But you have to prepare yourself to fast. Have you prepared yourself? Like, you have to go through things. You can't just, if you're somebody who's like fixated on sugars and salts and high fructose corn syrup, stuff with all types of wild stuff and glucose levels and things, you're addicted to food. So your body's going to crash the second that you say, I'm just going to leave everything alone. Maybe you're strong enough to survive it, but your body's going to crash. It's like if you take dope and you decide you're going to get off dope, your body's going to crash. If you take some of these drugs that you're stuck on, right? Some of you who are out here taking some of these painkillers and stuff. You try to get off that painkiller. Your body's not just going to be in pain. Your body's going to crash. Your body has those things feeding on them. Some of us even have things like my wife is teaching about with fibroid cysts, to where if you have these fibroid cysts in certain places, especially the ones that look like trees and stuff, those things have certain positions in your body and in your life, and they're gaining stuff from your body. They're going to tell your body they need food because they're basically little babies living off your body, right? Like, so fasting, you got to prepare yourself. You got to start eating less. You got to start only eating one type of food. Then you got to go to just, okay, within that one type of food, let's say it's fruits. Now I'm going to go from all fruits to I'm only gonna eat, like maybe tomatoes and apples or something like that. And I'm gonna leave the tomatoes alone and only eat apples, or maybe just eat the tomatoes. And then after that, I'm gonna go from tomatoes to nothing, because you got to train your body to be prepared. Because we don't eat correctly. You got to train your body, prepare your body to fast. Same thing with your spirit. What are some of the things you're holding on to? You got to start releasing things, on a slow regard. A lot of you guys, and this is why a lot of people can't be forgiven. And this is why I validate, I can't remember if it was Brother Jimmy or somebody else who was trying to hold me accountable earlier and saying that we just kick people off whenever they have a difference of opinion. We don't just kick people off, but I will validate what you said. We have to be careful about it, even the perception of that, because we have to slowly let go of things. So we have to understand that everybody's not going to get this thing right away. Matter of fact, nobody is. Matter of fact, those of us who say we get it don't really get it. We understand certain principles that allow us to get more out of certain things, but we don't really fully comprehend this either. So we're trying to still let go of certain things so that we can continue to fast and be holier and holier, more whole, more one with the Creator, our husband, more one with our even physical spouses, right? More one as a community coming together, right? And we can come out of cognitive dissonance. And a lot of people are stuck in cognitive dissonance because they're not whole, they're not one. The cognitive dissonance, though, usually comes because you haven't fasted, you haven't let go of many things. Sure, study everything. Everybody's like, I study this, I study that, and that's it. But it's always interesting to me. You'll be like, I study this, and so well, when I studied this religion, they said blah blah, and when I studied this religion, they said blah blah. When they studied this religion, blah blah. And so I think that all of them are saying the same thing. It's like, well, hold on, you're trying to make a whole decision, a holy decision, right, based off of a whole bunch of stuff you haven't let go of. You're saying Buddha taught this, Yashvara taught this, Muhammad taught this, Confucius taught this. I forget the person who brought up Taoism, so forgive me, but the person who brought up Taoism brought this. The Hindus say this, the Cherokee say this, the Iroquois say this. You're trying to use everybody's stuff. You won't let go of any of it, and you're trying to put all of it together and say it's whole, but that's cognitive dissonance. You've got a whole bunch of belief systems that actually go against each other because all of them have creation. So you say, well, they're similar. Well, there might be some similarities because all their people came from the same place. We all come from the same place, but let's look up and see if all of them agree on the same gods or netures or deities, whatever it is, right? Elohims, etc. Let's see if they all believe in the same thing. Let's say if some of them believe that you have to have as much what we would call devil or demonic stuff in you, evil in you, as greatness. And they say that you have to have the great and evil in you and balance the two. Well, why would you want to be just as evil as you are great? But some of these religions believe that, right? What does it mean to be light as a feather when you're talking about the laws of Ma'at, the laws of righteousness when it comes to a Kemetic person? And do they mean the same thing when we're talking about righteousness in the word of Yah? Right? But people are having cognitive dissonance. We're having conversation out of cognitive dissonance rather than conversation out of what is whole, out of holy, because we haven't broken away from a few things. So as I said, I apologize for this being a little shorter. I was running late. I apologize for it. There's some stuff that I had to make sure that I got done. There's still some stuff I got to make sure I get done, which is why I need to make sure that I'm done here so that I can have a little bit of time and then transition over. We still have the podcast on. If you want to join the podcast is simply this. And I apologize for the eraser not working. This is not my normal eraser for this board, but it's this is what you're looking for, the Kofi Afori podcast, and it's on Podbean. You can find all the stuff that we do. We always load them up, but you have to have the Podbean app. We're going to be on live in about 15 minutes, 9:15 a.m. Eastern in New York time, and we're going to be on the Podbean app. And even though I don't have Minister Kevin on this weekend, we might bring him back next weekend. We're going to continue the discussion on men and on fathers, because there's a lot of stuff that was brought up there, and I kind of want to get a little into it. I prayed about it. I thought about inviting him even up till yesterday evening, and the Most High said he wants me to address some things first. So we're going to address those things. But if you download the Podbean app, if you don't have it already, just go there, subscribe to the Kofi Afori podcast, and we'll make sure that, and then if you join us, you can join us live at 9:15 a.m. Eastern in New York time. Thank you, though. I'm going to get ready to take my leave. Please follow my wife, the Honorable Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, but the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. You can follow her on TikTok, YouTube, and on her website. I'm going to put up some stuff real quick. If you want to take a screenshot of it, you can take a screenshot. I'm not going to read everything out, but I'm going to put the information up if you want to try and contact us or go to the website or find out more things about what we're doing in the community. Feel free to do those things. We're going to have those things together for you ASAP. So feel free to check us out and any of the stuff that you see up right now. Once again, take a screenshot of it, etc. We appreciate you. Remember our classes. Mondays are on marriage, Tuesdays on monarchy, Wednesdays on sovereignty, Thursdays on Thursdays on natural medicine 1. Let me start over. Mondays on marriage, Tuesdays on monarchy, Wednesdays on sovereignty, Thursdays on natural medicine 1, Fridays on fibroid cysts, Saturdays on Hebrew characters, all right? So we're thankful, we're grateful. We appreciate everybody for coming out on this rising. Thank you again for everything that you guys are doing. Thank you for your time, your talent, your effort, your energy. Some of you even your donations, things of that nature. We really appreciate you. Some of you even tithes, offerings, things like that. We really, really appreciate you. And we look forward to doing great things. Let us know if you're interested in doing anything with us. If you want to contact us, if you want some life coaching, marital coaching, whatever it is. I'm going to get ready to take my leave, though. Thank you to everyone for being on. As always, this has been Pastor Kofi, aka the Shadow Band 1, Pastor, Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Don't forget to check out our son's YouTube channel for those who have children and want to see something that's more righteous and pure and spiritually led, but also see a little child get to be a little child. My son is following in his father's footsteps and wants to do a YouTube channel. We only have a couple videos up as of now, but we're going to make sure that we remedy that very quickly. And it's something that's great for the kids. Everything he's going to talk about certain things. Sometimes you're going to be seeing him jump around, move, swim, do flips. Sometimes it's going to be him talking about love, which he already has something on there talking about love and having a quick conversation with his father the other day. So we appreciate you. We honor you. We're excited and we're grateful. You can find him at 777 Soloface. That's what he wants his name to be. Matter of fact, that's a name I gave him for something else, but that's what he wants his name to stay. 777 Soloface, S-O-L-O-F-A-C-E. But you can also look up hashtag Find Solomon, hashtag Find Bloom, or hashtag Find Kofi, like you do for our YouTube channel, and just click on the top when it says these are the things that come up with it, and you should see some of his stuff up there now. So we're thankful, we're grateful, we appreciate you. And as always, we want you to remember that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, we shall be the reason this world changes for the better, bare minimum. We'll be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, fam. Shabbat shalom.